And I think I know most people here, but if you're new to this group, I'm Megan with ALA Public Policy and Advocacy Office. These are monthly peer-to-peer informal conversations for library workers interested in digital equity, digital inclusion. We try to have a kind of a central topic for each month so that we're kind of organized around that and someone to lead us in that conversation. We have Alex Houff from the Baltimore County Public Library today to talk about hotspot lending. Um, Alex is going to talk about what Baltimore County has done, challenges, successes, how they've kind of set that up. Um, you're welcome to ask questions, but also I hope others will share how they are doing hotspot lending or are thinking about it. Um, a part of this conversation, many of you might be thinking about the E-rate program, and so hotspots are now eligible for E-rate, and so maybe you're thinking about that and maybe lending for the first time, and I think Alex can share a little bit about how Baltimore County is thinking about that program as well. Um, I have a few announcements, but before I go, does anybody else have any announcements or just anything they want to share? Anybody else want to say hi?
I want to say hi and show off my Halloween library shirt because the shipping didn't come in time for Halloween last year. So it says it's time to reap the benefits of your library card. And I just want this group to appreciate that. Thanks.
Oh, I do appreciate it. Very nice. So you'll be wearing that all week. Yeah. Yeah, very good. You're getting some applause. Yes.
I like the idea of characterizing readers as grim reapers because they're reading, and that's what reaping is, I guess, in that context. So it's fun.
Nice. Anybody else have anything they want to share? Oh, thanks, Mike. Mike is joining from Kansas. Great to have you with us. Hi, Donna.
Hello.
Good to have you with us. All right, well, I have a few policy updates and other announcements. Maybe you all saw just a quick update from the Learn Without Limits program. The FCC released a small entity compliance guide. So if you're thinking about hotspots, you're a small entity, that might be useful. Um, Hotspot lending is our main topic today. So Alex Houff from Baltimore County Public Library is here to share what they're doing in Baltimore County, how they're thinking about the E-rate program, some of the ways they've set up the program in the past and into the present. So it's a great opportunity to ask questions, and I hope others will share how they're working on hotspot lending as well. Let's see. We have a new resource for the Digital Equity Act capacity grants. So ALA has a map up on the website to track the capacity grants. So you can check that out. It's not it's not all the way updated yet because a bunch of new states were announced. So we're up to 7 states that have been awarded their funding. So that's really exciting. Um, if you are part of this group, you've joined in the past, we record these meetings. And you can catch past meeting recordings on our YouTube page. I just dropped the link into the chat. So if there was a topic that you wanted to go back to, or if you missed a topic, you can always catch those there. And then finally, we have been doing this digital inclusion working group since January. So we're coming up on a year, and we'd love to just get feedback on how it's going, what you think is useful, what topics you'd like to see, how you'd like the meetings to be organized. just kind of what people want out of this time and space. This is supposed to be a peer-to-peer opportunity to learn from one another, to get to know others, to hear some policy updates and know what's going on kind of at the federal level. Um, but we want to know what's useful. So we've created a survey. We're going to keep the survey open for a couple of months. I just dropped that into the chat. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes to complete. And we will be reminding folks, but please take a few minutes to do that. We'd love to hear from you about how to make this group better for everyone. And I think that's it from me. We have a number of things kind of going on with court cases, net neutrality. The oral arguments are Thursday. And then we have a couple of E-rate and USF cases next week. So hopefully we'll have some more information on both of, or on all of those subjects very soon, and how ALA plans to be involved in supporting the FCC in those cases. But yeah, no real update at this time. Anybody else before I turn it over to Alex? Okay, Alex, I think the floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, of course. So first, let me apologize. It's been probably 2 years since I've done a Zoom call in my car. So I'm a little behind on whatever the Zoom app has been updated to at this point. So I have no idea how to mute it or anything like that. So we're all just kind of learning with me together on this one. Yeah, so as Megan said, I'm Alex. I am the Digital Equity and Virtual Services Manager at Baltimore County Public Library. We have been lending hotspots since February of 2020. There's probably some of you on this call. Again, I'm on my phone, so I can only see like 3 of you. So there are some of you on this call who've probably heard me talk about this over the last 4 years at various presentations. We started right before the pandemic with 50 hotspots total, and we now circulate over 1,000. And as Megan said, we are looking at adding E-rate to our conversation and our fleet. So we'll be having 100 hotspots to start with that E-rate funding. We will be changing a little bit about how we handle our fleet because of the E-rate funding. We also lend routers for up to 6 months. So we have 2 levels of kind of connectivity available for customers. The difference is for routers, you have to qualify. We used to have 3 prime vendors for our hotspots. We have kind of consolidated that into one because I was able to find a vendor that could do everything that we needed to do. I highly recommend, if you can work down to one vendor, to do that, because multiple vendors is very, very challenging. I'm sure a lot of you have worked with Mobile Beacon. They were one of our vendors early on, and for people who need to manage the process, their back end is very challenging. So what we did is we found a vendor who was able to do a lot more for us on the front end, and that has really helped us a lot in terms of our staff. How many times does our staff have to touch these hotspots? We circulate them primarily for customers who don't have any other access. We were heavily involved in the ACP early on, but that has not really changed too much about our demand for hotspots. People are still really highly clamoring for the hotspots. I see a question here. We use T-Mobile now, and we were able to kind of work out with their kitting partner a way that they would just do all of the processing on the front end. One of the things that takes a lot of time in hotspots, and especially hotspots in libraries, is the provisioning. And at one point we were provisioning every device. So we had to touch every device in our department, and we have a relatively small department. So when we were able to offload that to T-Mobile, it really, really helps, because don't have the time to touch everything, to change it to all of our kind of provisioning standards. We have passwords for every device, and we have SSIDs for every device that are unique to that device. So it just was a lot harder to do earlier on. We've really kind of gotten it down to a science at this point. We now work specifically with SIM cards on a regular basis. So any of our old equipment that we used to have, we're able to repurpose. And that was really important to us when we picked our vendor as well. Um, and let's see, what else can I tell you about hotspots? We have a 242 person wait list. So it's not like we are meeting every possible need that we have. We know that people are using them, and again, if you've heard me talk about this in the past, you've heard me say, I would say 90% of the people who are borrowing these hotspots are borrowing them because they have a need, and that need is typically driven by affordability. It's not typically driven by the fact that they want to go, you know, watch movies in their backyard or take it on a camping trip or something like that. We really are meeting a need for people who have no connectivity or can't afford connectivity. And that's why it's really important for us to continue to operate with this program as much as we possibly can. So yeah, that's our hotspot program in a nutshell. We also have LTE Chromebooks. So we have 150 LTE Chromebooks that we circulate in our high social vulnerability branches. We have found that there's a group of customers who regularly need to have devices and connectivity. And due to the popularity of our hotspots, we couldn't really pull 50 hotspots out to pair them with Chromebooks because it's a big ask for our cataloging and the rest of our staff to kind of make sure that those things stay paired. And it was just a lot easier to have an all-in-one device. We found those to be very, very popular. I'm trying to get those phased out a little bit because they are a little more delicate, shall we say. You can get a much more robust Chromebook for less money than you can get with an LTE Chromebook, but there still are folks who really, really value that bundled piece. And until we get our hotspots to a point where we're not, you know, we don't have 242 person wait lists, then I really don't see us pulling out hotspots to bundle them with Chromebooks. The demand has not lessened. And I don't anticipate it lessening, to be honest, because as long as the definition of broadband stays the way it is, then people are going to never have enough connectivity in their homes at the affordable price that they would need. So it is one of the things that it makes me sad about the ACP going away. I think it was a great program and I wish it would come back. However, I'm not sure we would ever be able to rebuild that trust, so I don't know how we would do it. Our loss rate is about 30%. I just saw that question come in because I can't actually see the chat at the same time, so you're lucky if I catch it. The loss rate is about 30%, which generally speaking is lower than the standard from what I understand. It's hard to actually get a number of that loss rate. People don't talk about it that often. We have found that we have pretty good customer return rates because they know that they are benefiting from it. We have a 3-week loan period, and we have a 5 renewal cycle. However, we obviously don't renew while there's holds, and right now there's holds. So you have it for 3 weeks and that's it. We do encourage folks who qualified for our Chromebook giveaway in the past to apply for our long-term lending. We were able to extend that for another year. The long-term lending, if you qualify, is you know, you can have a Chromebook and a router, which obviously connects up to 30 devices in a home and is high speed and 5G. Our hotspots are 4G. And so that gives you that connectivity for 6 months. which is nice, and a longer term of service, and a longer and a more robust tool.
Hey, hey, Alex,
Yeah,
question on the loss rate. Is that, 30% of checkouts, or 30% of users, or like 30% of devices before the end of their
devices.
life go lost? How?
Of devices. So like if we had trying to think what we had. So it's only active devices right now. Right. So that's how we're looking at loss rate. If it was an active device, and because otherwise it gets withdrawn from our system. Like once it goes out of its service term, we don't count that as a loss. It's just and yes, T-Mobile is very good. But it is because they're all checked out at any given point in time. I would say I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it is of active devices. Did I answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. Sorry,
Yep.
you can't see the chat, and I said thanks in the chat.
Okay. Right. All good. Yeah, so that's kind of the hotspot program in a nutshell. I know it's a lot of work. It is and we are very fortunate that we have a department that is specifically dedicated to not hotspots, like hotspots only, but in digital equity. So it is our purview. It is not something that's run out of it's not run out of a branch or anything like that. It is our department's circulating items. And I think that helps a lot because there is a central place for troubleshooting. We have staff on hand that handle all of that. We have a ticketing system where if people get their hotspots back and they don't know what to do with them, or they're broken or whatever, we handle all of that. So I think that really, really helps when it comes to kind of making sure the program stays viable.
Alex, there was a question from Christine about best practices for equipment return. So people were asking for ideas beyond just like turning off access.
Oh, you mean in terms of in terms of like getting people to return them?
I guess, yeah.
Okay. So again, we're fine free. So hotspots cease to be useful to most people once you turn off once you suspend the service. So we have a 3-day grace period. We run hotspot reports every morning. We do a report that says how many items are overdue, and then we work with our T-Mobile rep to actually disable them. We don't deactivate them, we just disable them. And we find that those come back pretty quickly as a result of that. They obviously, they are one of our items that gets a notification on an overdue that is much earlier. Like usually you get an overdue notification after about 2 weeks. This one you get it like your hotspot's going to stop working. And because people are using it for either for their work or school or whatever, it's really important to them that they don't lose that access. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of people who just go right back on the wait list, and that is challenging. And there's not a lot we can do about that, which is why we're constantly looking about how we're going to change our fleet. And I saw a question come in about why not collections. So we worked very closely with collections. This is considered a library of things item. So it actually did originate. It's a joint project between collection development and devs. But due to the fact that once it was established as a library of things item, it got moved over to us because they don't deal with any tech-based products. So we have, like I said, we do the Chromebooks, we do the routers, we do the LTE, and we do all the hotspots. So because those are the things that we have in bulk. Any other library of things items, we have much smaller collection of, and those can be handled by collections. Does that answer your question? Do we have ICT staff in our department? Our IT staff is actually through the county. So we have a department, an Office of Information Technology, and actually, as we're all sitting here, and I don't know if any other library staff are experiencing this as well, but all of the comprise is down. So if you use Comprise as your service, I'm getting emails every 5 seconds about the fact that no one can pay by credit card in any of our branches right now. So we do have an IT department that is through the county, but my department is also kind of a pseudo IT department. So we have IT staff. Like I, for example, am considered IT staff as well as some of the people who work for me. And we work very closely with the IT department in the county to make sure that we have what we need, but all hotspots, iPads, Chromebooks, those are all managed internally by us. Public PCs, staff PCs, all of those kinds of things are managed, and our kiosks, our self-checks, and all of that is managed by our IT department with our input. Yes, it is interesting and it can be challenging. There's no question. And it is a somewhat fraught relationship at times. We've done a lot better about kind of managing it lately. We've improved the relationship a great deal. I think now we have a much stronger IT team on the library side. So the IT department in the county is much more willing to give us a lot more grace than we've had in the past. So that helps us, but they have never been involved in our hotspots. So that's always been us. How many staff do I have? It's me. I have 4 additional staff in addition to me. However, and I have the ILS administrator lives in my department, so she doesn't really have anything to do with any of our. We like to think of the department as having two faces. One face being the external face, the digital equity side, where we work a lot with our customers directly. We have direct customer contact, where we're working with digital literacy classes, and we're developing and we work with digital navigators and all of that. And then we have the internal side, which is the virtual services. So like I said, my title is DEVS, Digital Equity and Virtual Services. Virtual services is the internal facing IT component of what I do. So I have a staff that is focused on digital equity. So I have a digital equity technology education specialist who is responsible for writing grants for digital equity, going out on the mobile vehicles to do all of the work with the shelters and the work with all of our mobile outreach. And then I have a tech support person who's responsible for the internal side of things, who will help internal customers, which is staff, handle all of their training around Microsoft 365 or any of our or Polaris or anything that's related to the technology in-house. So it is, yes, it is. I can't see the full question, but that's a lot. You're not wrong. So it's me. I have a virtual services coordinator, the ILS administrator, a digital equity technology education specialist, and a digital equity navigator. So there's 5 of us total right now. And yes, we have a lot. We do a lot.
And Tracy's asking, how many hours a week do you think you spend on circulating tech collection collectively?
I would say right now, because of the demand that we have for the long-term lending, and we're trying to expand that, we have 150 routers. that are out at any given point in time, and we have a 70-person wait list on that right now, I believe is the last number that I saw. I would say it's probably 20 hours a week for my digital equity education specialist who's working on that program alone. But he is also working on outreach for digital literacy for adults with disabilities, and he's also working on a shelter grant to teach digital upskilling to residents of 2 shelters. So I would say it's probably about 50-50 for him on that kind of thing. Right now, the guy who's working with me on the digital, my virtual services employee is also working on the E-rate hotspot RFP, because you have to write an RFP for that. So he's doing that. I would say that's probably about 10 hours of his time a week. The rest of it is focused on kind of internal IT. So I would say circulating items, it's about 1 FTE is focused on that, kind of split among people. Let me see.
So Liz is asking, when you switch to E-rate for hotspots, are you planning to get new devices or get bids on the existing fleet?
We found that bids on the existing, for this round, we are doing new devices. We're not trying to get them to bid on the existing fleet. We found that thought that was going to be too challenging, but we also kind of want to see what that looks like, because the 2 fleets will be slightly different. So if we had them bid on the existing fleet, we would have to change the fleet to be a filtered service. And right now it's not filtered. So we are looking at getting these 100 devices and potentially turning them into a long-term hotspot lending as opposed to a long-term router lending. We are getting a lot of people who are asking for that because of the portability of the hotspot versus the kind of stability of the router. Does that make sense? Yeah, so we're not going to rebid it because we don't filter our hotspots right now.
Alex, and maybe this is a good time to just move into a little bit more of your general thinking about the E-rate program and how that might shape up, or what you're thinking about.
Yeah, so we've been looking around, and of the maybe, I don't know, I can't remember the exact number, but we looked, and maybe there's like 700 470s out there right now. There's not a lot of libraries in that group, as far as I know, and this is all kind of hearsay because we had this conversation yesterday, and I don't know that firsthand. I didn't look. This is what my coworker told me, and what he's finding also is that a vast majority of the folks who are using E-rate are looking at much smaller numbers. We're looking at 100, which for us is a small number, but for a lot of other systems, they're looking at between 15 and 50. So, which we would consider, to be a smaller number, and especially if that's their first foray into it. Again, we're just kind of dipping our toe into the water with it because we want to see what happens. We want to see how it works. We want to see how we get reimbursed. We also have to think about our existing budget, because of course you have to pay for it first and then you get reimbursed. And so we need to make sure that we have room for that. And that's kind of how we're thinking about E-rate right now. We're definitely not, like I said, on Liz's question, we're not getting bids on our existing fleet. But I can't imagine that T-Mobile has already told us that they will bid. So I feel like we're in pretty good shape there. So, yep. I don't know what else you want me to tell you about E-rate and the RFP process, other than the fact that you do have to bid it. We also, we're looking at other things for E-rate as well, but I am kind of surprised, frankly, that there's not more libraries in trying to do this work with E-rate. I feel like there's a really good opportunity there. But I also understand the complexities because it is a complex process. E-rate itself is complex, and having hotspots are complex. And if you're trying to do it as kind of a side hustle, for lack of a better phrase, it's even harder, right? I mean, if you don't have staff that are dedicated to it, and you don't have a process that you have honed down to kind of a science, it definitely can be a challenging and overwhelming feeling.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone on the call participated in ECF, but there are a few differences from ECF to the new E-rate hotspot lending, and some of them are like wins, we'd say, and just like libraries being able to have more kind of local control on shaping the policies. So how you lend it, like how long they go out, we found that that really varies widely. Like Alex said, they do 3 weeks at a time. Some people do several months. So you can kind of determine that and what works best at the local level, as well as the educational purpose and unmet need. You don't need to kind of record that with like a personally identifiable information. You can figure out a way within your own policies um, to determine that those things are being met without kind of even collecting signatures necessarily. So we think that those are really good things and worth checking out with the new E-rate program. Not to put anyone on the spot, but we also have a couple of the E-rate state coordinators here, so maybe want to chime in at this point about how libraries in the state are thinking about it, or to Alex's point about like the smaller fleets and small libraries dipping their toes in, or anyone else too.
So Megan, I feel like you're calling me out here.
Or
Henry's being
Henry,
very
yeah.
quiet, but Henry's being very quiet, but I'll go ahead and speak up. So I had asked about the return rates because we had uh, a person associated with our organization so the Ohio Public Library Information Network is kind of like a sub-agency of our state library.
Mhm,
We're
mhm.
weird. We're all weird.
Yep.
But so we have our own board and we have meetings, and after one of the meetings, somebody asked other librarians in the room how they were getting them back, and one of our former board members said all we have to do is disable them and they come right back. And then other board members said nope, doesn't work for us. We're losing, and they said $12,000 worth of equipment out of a very large budget. So I don't know that they're between 30 and 50%, but actually hearing those numbers spoken aloud here today helps me.
Mhm.
It helps me help them. So thank you. Thank you for saying that. I think that is part of the conversation that is not coming out in other places. And perhaps we need to do a little bit more to figure out what is normal, what is acceptable, and what we can be doing to address the inequity and also be good stewards of resources so that we don't find ourselves in a more difficult spot than we're already in lots of ways. Anyway, so
Right.
so that's all that said. We are still doing our trainings for so I'm a state data coordinator. I'm a state coordinator, but we contract our trainings for E-rate, and we're still in the process of doing our trainings with the hotspots, and added into the mix this year. And I have not heard a whole lot from what people's plans are, but what we're planning to do at the state level may be because of how unique we are. We get letters of agency from every single public library system in the state because we provide internet service to their main libraries.
Sure. Mhm.
Their branches are still their own responsibility, but we are charged in our Ohio Revised Code with digital equity within libraries, and so that's what we do. We get whatever level of connection, whether that is well, we're working towards gig for everybody, but whether
Mhm.
that's a gig or multiple gigs, you know, what you need is what you get,
Right.
based on bandwidth usage. So that said, we're in this unique situation where we have letters of agency and we can make consortia bids. And
Mhm.
we're still working on what an RFP document looks like so we can help libraries compare apples to apples. Because on the one hand, yes, everybody wants to max out their E-rate possibility, but a 15 as I went to the schools health libraries broadband coalition Shelby AnchorNet's conference, and they had a pre-conference about Hotspot specifically. And as one of the presenters said, maybe the $15 a month isn't really what you want. Maybe the $90 piece of equipment isn't really what you want, but maybe that discount can get you to what you want. Maybe the $15 a month service only gets 4G, and or maybe it's throttled at a certain data threshold. Whereas if you got $25 or $30 a month, you'd still get discounts and you would get a better deal, but you would be able to get 5G unthrottled. So what, trying to come up with a statewide RFP that helps folks compare apples to apples is still a work in process. You have an RFP for hotspots? Great. Donna, I would
Yeah,
love
we do
to see
too.
that. I would
We
love
do
to
too.
see that.
Mhm.
Okay,
Mhm.
I would love to see that. And I was gonna say for these folks here, whenever we do get our 470 out, I will post something to the listserv so you can take a look at it and copy or say that's that's not what you need or whatever. But I think we're all kind of like just going to be muddling through this year. The one other thing that came up in conversation today during our training, and Megan, I think maybe we need to get our E-rate think tank involved in this. Some folks are concerned that having replacements included in the contract, a replacement equipment included for lost and stolen items in the contract might be considered a gift and might be looked upon with disfavor by USAC. And so to me, that's just a matter of contractual language. Like, you get one replacement item. Like that is part of a warranty for lots of different things. You get a replacement or but some folks yeah, some folks are concerned about the replacement of equipment being considered a gift in the USAC rules. So
Yeah. And I'll say that's one of the reasons that we are not committing to flipping our entire fleet into the E-rate, kind of simply because, we've had it now for 4 years. 4 years. It'll be 5 in this February. And, we have made it, our CEO, digital equity is obviously it's a mandate for all of us in libraries, but it is something that, she feels very strongly about. So some of it is built into our budget, most of it, right? Most of what we already have is built into our budget. And so there's really no reason for us to go to something that is, I don't want to say subpar, but puts us in a much more fraught position than we would be if we were just we're handling it on our own. Which is why we're not committing to switching all 1,000 of our devices to E-rate, because we lose a lot of flexibility in that, right? It is one thing if we can say, all right, we're going to have 100 of these and we're going to use them for this purpose, potentially the long-term hotspot, which would be fantastic, right? Because we can model it off our long-term lending for our routers, and we have that already in play, and it wouldn't be reinventing the wheel. We could just tweak it a little bit. And then we could say, all right, these are these 100, we're going to see what this is going to be, a kind of a POC, we're going to see how it works, and then kind of decide if we want to expand it using that E-rate kind of vehicle, and then keep our second one. I just need to have an understanding of the impact it's going to have on my staff as well. So there's a lot of things that, while I think the E-rate for hotspots is fabulous, I think you're not going to find a lot of people who are going to go full steam ahead into it until everybody has an understanding of what the impacts are, how it's going to change the way you do it now. I think if it's your first foray into hotspots, you won't know any different, then it's going to be fine. But if you had a previous program that provided you with a lot of flexibility, moving into the E-rate space is going to kind of hamstring you a little bit in that. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, I'm going to hold off on making that my full fleet until I have a better handle on it. That's just my gut sense on it. I think it's absolutely worth doing. I think it's absolutely a great thing that that the FCC has done, and I think it's fantastic the way ALA has kind of lobbied for all the things that we got in it. So I want to make sure I'm clear that I'm not saying you know, we're never going to use it. We are. We just don't know the breadth of what that's going to look like yet.
Yeah, I like a lot of what you're saying about kind of dipping your toe in and experimenting there. And
Mhm.
we definitely want libraries to take advantage of this. That's how we also continue to advocate to make it better and make it more accessible, is by being able to say, look, like libraries tried this and this is what happened. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, so definitely, we encourage that, but also definitely recognize all of the challenges with E-rate that you're bringing up here. Um, and obviously, and navigating just a very complex lending program as it is. I think Donna wanted to chime in. Donna's offered to share her RFP with the group. And then Tracy has another question about if people charge replacement fees to customers for lost devices or parts.
We do. We do charge. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, Donna. Do you want to jump in there? Sorry.
Oh, no, you're not cutting me off. That's okay. No, we just, I was gonna say, yes, we'll post our RFP to the group, because I think that's probably the easiest way instead of sending it individually to everybody.
Yep. Mhm.
I just added that comment that AT&T, should replace our devices as well. But yeah, we have to go through that whole deactivating, reactivating process and tracking. But at the end of the day, our staff was so passionate and dedicated to the program. When we did an emergency connectivity fund, that it didn't matter. They didn't care how much of a pain in the butt things were. Everything checked out. People were so appreciative of the service. And regarding ECF, of course, we're not circulating any hotspots right now because our digital plan expired, obviously, with the ECF funding. But when we were checking things out with the ECF, we did not charge any replacement fee. One, it wasn't our money; it was federal government's money. And two, we just felt if people were in need, it was, in essence, it was like, taxing poverty, right? So that's
Mhm.
just our take on it. And I understand if it's your own resources. That's it.
Yeah, I mean, we nominally charge. We've got replacement fees listed on the record. Various things. But let's just be realistic, right? I mean, ultimately, almost 100% of the time, the big four are cycling out new devices all the time while you're sitting there and they're talking about like maybe it's a 3-year life cycle. With hotspots, it's really more like 18 months. So, I'm certainly not in the business of generating e-waste if I can avoid it. However, I also try to be realistic about like the number of times one of our providers has said to us, "Oh, we don't want that back ever." Like, it just tells me that in a lot of they've written it off. So while the loss rate may be higher, et cetera, we were able to, when we changed providers, we kept the same equipment. So, if you had mobile beacon, we were able to just pull them back in and reset and add a new SIM card. So we were able to kind of keep our fleet up by reusing equipment as much as possible. Which is why anytime a staff member gets in touch with me and says, "Oh, so and so lost the cord on this, and do you want us to put it on their record?" 99% of the time, I'm going to say no. There's really no reason for it. We have so many cords. I mean, we are drowning in cords. So like those kinds of things are not what we're going to do. We're also probably not going to charge you for a broken or lost device. Once it is disabled and we have basically deactivated the SIM, if you can find another way to use it, great. That's kind of where I'm probably shouldn't say that out loud, but that's kind of how I feel about it, because most of the time the people who are using it need it. So, again, I'm not in the business of creating waste. I'm not in the business of wasting people's money, but for the most part, we are finding that the people who need these really truly need them. That any kind of abuses are rare.
Tracy's commenting they're spending $2,000 a year on replacement cords, chargers, and cases. Yeah. Does
Yeah, I
anybody?
think we're less than that.
Okay.
I would say.
I was just going to ask if anybody else wanted to chime in about their hotspot lending experience. Maybe you're doing it on a much smaller scale. Maybe um, you've been doing it a long time, or maybe you're thinking about it for the first time. But does anybody else have any experience they want to share in our last few minutes? Thanks, Tracy. Um, Alex, any final thoughts from you just about your experience or any like big takeaways we haven't covered yet?
I mean, no, I think, I highly encourage any system that even thinks they could benefit, even a couple of people could benefit from a hotspot program, to not be afraid of the kind of the system side work of it, because it will kind of work itself out. I mean, I do highly recommend you have a plan in place prior to getting them circulating, but it's been so worth it. The stories that we hear, the anecdotes that we get, the conversations that we have, it's worth every piece of work we put into it. I think the customers really value it, and it's something that really is a big part of what we do.
Yeah. I was just talking with some other library folks last week and heard a really cool story about a librarian in a rural county who was um, taking hotspots to the local farmers market. And so then the vendors could process credit card payments and could connect with customers via social media and things, and just for people to have that connectivity option while they're there at the market for customers to log in as well. So I thought that was super cool. But yeah, just the stories you hear about how people are using these
Mhm.
is really awesome. I love that. And yeah, and Amy's saying that coverage is the limiting factor in small and rural areas. Yeah. Michelle agrees. Well,
All
thank
right,
you.
I have to actually run
Yeah.
because I do have my daughter is playing in a regional championship game, so I'm good, two of them. So I'm gonna go. And but anybody can reach out to me at any time. I'm pretty accessible. So and also I have to deal with all of our credit card not being not being not processing right at the moment. So but anyone can reach out to me. I'm easy to find. If you go on the BCPL website, I'm under the leadership page, and you can just email me and I'll get back to you.
Thanks so much, Alex. This was really
All right.
helpful. We'll
All
add you
right.
to
Thank
the
you.
Connect space too if you want to continue this
Oh yeah,
conversation.
that'd be
Yeah.
great. Thank you. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
All
And
right.
thank you everyone for being here. We have a few more minutes. I'll definitely keep the line open if people want to chat. I'm dropping the link to the survey again in the chat. So please do take a few minutes to fill that out and let us know what topics you'd like to see for the future of this group, any feedback you have about the meetings thus far, and just what your priorities and interests are as we move forward. So we want to make this really useful for everyone. This is a peer-to-peer learning space. It's an opportunity for connection. So just whatever would be, the most useful to the community. Um, yeah, and that's all from me. But if people want to, there's still a lot going on in the chat. So if people have any final comments, feel free to chime in. Oh, yeah, Danielle's using them with college students.